I'm sorry.
It's all right.
It's all right. Alright, another one from that one. What's the matter? He's filming. Watch your head. Sorry. I'm thirsty. Unless you need blinding.
Oh, yeah. Does it work?
It does. Unfortunately, we can't run it here
Too
in
much
this
power.
building. No, but there's it's a treasonable offence to have a naked flame in this building.
Okay.
So I'm running the risk of, if I were to light a flame in here,
Right, right.
ending my days at the end of a rope.
Yeah.
So that we do not want to do. 'Cause
No.
I've got other inventions I need to invent.
Yeah. And how long did it take you to invent this?
So there's about 150 hours work gone into this one. It is actually a working steam engine. Normally there'd be a little camp stove at the back and a copper teapot for a boiler. So it's an atmospheric engine, works by the steam fills the cylinder here, and then water from this tank is injected into the steam, which creates a vacuum, and it's air pressure that pushes the piston down into the vacuum, and that's what causes the engine to move. As it moves down, it fills the pump with water from this tank, because originally these engines were used not to test biscuits but to pump water from mines at a much larger scale. And then the water flows up this pipe, fills up the injection tank, and the surplus spills back down into the tank here. So that's how it would operate. There's no flywheel, so it's up and down like this. And then when you're ready to test your biscuit, because it's a quality control testing machine, the tea in here, which is rather weak actually today, but is kept hot by the little spirit burner underneath. And then when you're ready to test your biscuit, so you'd probably test one from each packet if you're having a tea dueling contest, pop it in the clamp, move the little white lever out of the way, and then it begins to dunk the biscuit. And all you simply do is watch the biscuit until it has a catastrophic failure, which is normally the bottom half of the biscuit falls off and ends up in a nice load of porridge at the bottom of the flask there. So that's now happened, so we move the detent back, the engine will keep going.
Yeah.
This will gradually fill up with sludge, and then all you do is count the balls, so we know that one's withstood 4 immersions.
Incredible.
And then you test one or two from each packet and make sure you've got consistent quality.
Wonderful, wonderful, because quality biscuits is always the most important thing with any tea party.
This certainly is.
One of the biggest disappointments.
If you're trying to settle a score with tea duelling, or indeed you're running a contest, then you need to have consistent quality for the sake of fairness.
Absolutely.
Fair play for all.
Yeah. So
Yes.
can you talk me through some of the others as well?
Of course, yeah. Well, we move on. This one is the gravity mug. It's a stylish drinking vessel which can help you determine the specific gravity of the liquid contained therein. So at the moment I've got it calibrated. The little weights here are for calibrating, and there's calibrating for tea at the moment, so I can check the strength of sugar content of the tea. This one is a thermometer, so there's a little probe inside and a bimetallic strip, so that registers the temperature, and then when it's filled with fluid, this will float up and you can read the specific gravity off the scale there. So once you know the specific gravity and the temperature, using these very easy to use tables here, you can determine the sugar content of your tea, or if, for example, you're drinking some other beverage like licorice water, you can check for cyanide.
Yeah.
Very common cyanide poisoning in licorice water. And so all the answers are in this little book, really.
Wonderful.
But it is rather small in print, so we can have a compact portable unit. So we've provided a magnifying glass as well to help read the tables. So that's that one.
Superb.
This tea stirring machine. This is something that I can't imagine how life was before it had this.
I know, I've just realised, how have I been living without such a thing?
Exactly. So again, because we're not allowed to have a naked flame in here through pain of death and treason, this is not running as it should be on hot air. So normally there's a spirit burner here which would provide a small flame and heat the air up inside this cylinder. This would be filled with water, so you'd have a cold end and a hot end. And as this displacer moves up and down, it moves the air from one end to the other inside this cylinder. And that causes the air to expand and contract, pushing on or pulling on this little piston here. So it's pushed out and sucked back in. And that causes the wheel to rotate, which pulls on the cord and operates the tea stirring mechanism there. So when you have a family round to tea, for example, it's an invaluable device, because once you've stirred Auntie Mabel's tea, you can simply withdraw the spoon, put it in the little holder there, hand Auntie Maud her tea, or Auntie Mabel rather, and then place Auntie Maud's under the stirrer and begin the process again. So very simple, compact, and every kitchen should have one, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wonderful.
This one is tentacular, so I'll wind it up. I'll just come across in front. Okay. This is a game of skill. It's designed to help improve dexterity of airship pilots. And so if we can see here, we have a giant flying Kraken and an airship here. Give you an idea of scale, the airship has a crew of 12, 185 passengers, 4 tons of Darjeeling on board. So if you imagine the Kraken is slumbering in a cloud, gently waggling its tentacles in its sleep, and the airship comes across this thing. Airships cannot climb very rapidly, because the quickest way to climb is to throw a few passengers off, because we're not going to throw the tea out. We don't want to do that, so...
Not the Darjeeling.
No, can't lose that Darjeeling. So the pilot has to very carefully navigate his way through the tentacles, because Krakens have very sensitive tentacles. If you brush against one, they'll close in upon you, drag you down, tear you apart with this little fearsome beak there. And that will be the end of the pilot, the crew, the passengers and the tea, which we don't want. So because this is a model, It's not going to consume the airship, because then I'd have to build another model if I made one that consumed itself.
Yeah.
So don't want to do that. So if we do encounter a tentacle, then it sounds the alarm and we know that we failed, so we need to practice more. And that's tentaculous.
Wonderful, wonderful. But I have one problem with all of these, is that it says the pointless creations up there, but I
Right.
see a point to all of them.
Can't really answer that.
That's the enigma that is.
Yes, I mean,
the constant conundrum of one man's purpose is another man's pointlessness.
Exactly,
But I see a
yeah.
big purpose in this, so thank you ever so much for your time.
I spent a lot of time studying for my doctorate in pointlessity.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to stand by it. It's all pretty pointless, really.
Wonderful.
We spend a lot of hours building things that really are just for entertainment, I guess.
But absolutely, and how entertaining, how much love and passion has gone into it. And a final one, the pneumatic walking machine.
Pneumatic walking cane. Demonstrate that to you. I can't give you a working demonstration because unfortunately the machine has developed an air leak, but it is a working object normally. As you perambulate, the pump in the bottom here, it's like a bicycle pump. It pumps up pneumatic pressure, air pressure, and the air pressure builds up inside the core here and in this array of copper pipes. And the pressure is shown on the gauge here. When you've reached about 20 pounds per square inch of pressure, you'll have enough pressure to sound a horn. So when you press the H button, air is diverted down here through this reed pipe and out there. Also the capability of sounding a whistle, which is less loud, and that's through this here, that's the whistle, like a steam whistle. Finally, if you have a really stubborn object in your way that refuses to move, we have a siren which is activated by the S button here. Very useful for clearing a path through a busy city street and for scaring away small venomous animals, that kind of thing. It also has an auxiliary input here, and you can pump it up with a bicycle pump before you set off on your journey, particularly if you're stepping straight onto the street where you may need to use the device. And also you can hail a hansom cab and you save your vocal cords, so very good for all of that. Yeah.
And which is your favourite of all of your creations?
Difficult to have a favourite. I think probably for its sheer sculptural appeal, the Tentaculus is one of my favourite objects.
Absolutely.
This is the only pet we have at home.
Yeah.
We affectionately call him Old Squiddy at home. Although someone did suggest he might be called Malcolm, which I didn't think really worked for me.
No, no. Did you hear that, Toby? Yeah.
One of the objects that seems to attract lots of visitors is the tea stirring machine, and I think that's because it has an obvious place in most people's kitchens.
Yeah.
I think that's why it kind of draws the crowds.
Instant appeal.
Yeah.
Well, thank you ever so much for all your time and for your dedication to the art. Cheers.
I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, sir.
Excellent. Thank you, Doctor. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.